India is the third largest automobile market globally, contributing a remarkable 7.1% to our nation's GDP. As we navigate the future of the automobile and mobility industry, let us deep dive into discussions on electric vehicles, passenger and commercial vehicles, ancillaries and infrastructure, policy and regulations. Industry pioneers and thought leaders will unite to explore the future at the second edition of Republic Digital Roundtable Mobility Revolution, pioneering the next auto era. Only on Republic Digital.
Dive into policy and regulations that are shaping the present as well as the future of mobility in India. Joining us this evening, Abhijit Sinha, Technocrat, Ease of Doing Business, Program Director, National Highways for Electrical Vehicles, also President CPOs of India and ex-CAG member. We have with us Pankaj Krishna, the founder and CEO of Chrome DM, Uday Narang, Chairman of Anglian Omega Group and Omega Seki Mobility, and Abhimanyu Shankdhar, Regional Engagement Lead Asia UK Pact, Arup, India. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. As Abhijit, I'd like to come to you with my first question to understand from you in detail of the kind of specific regulatory frameworks that you believe are needed to reform and also facilitate the growth of electric vehicles in India.
Thank you for having me here, and I will be very crisp to put my wish list on the table, is to have a new age of policy making, which speaks more from the data-driven, evidence-based and trial-based. It should not be, or what has happened over a period of time, that we have believed certain policies to be good, and then we have failed. So by the time we do an impact assessment, or by the time we find something that something went wrong, your 3 to 4 years has gone. And if government has been doing that business, which obviously as Ease of Doing Business Program Director, I would not recommend that government should be in the business. But if government has done that business, then it will be more specific and it will waste more time. It may be a tender, it may be, you must have heard a lot of tenders came into electric mobility but did not came on the ground. These are the reasons we should believe and we should start a new age of policy making, which is evidence based and which is trial based. It should also conduct technical trials to give people and a stakeholder a complete confidence and insight, whether they have to take a decision on the deployment, they have to take a decision of financing, or a policy or a technical competence. Because machine, the way they are catalogued by the manufacturers, they do not behave that way on the ground. So how they do behave and what type of ecosystem at the time of deployment they will create, it decides the market of the deployment, a new vehicle, a new trucking or a bus or a two-wheeler or three-wheeler. These are things which is not possible without trial. And we as a country, I don't know why but where, we do not believe into trials, we believe into copy-paste. And a lot of consultants who have also worked with government in previous era has only given a copy-paste Western policy to India, and by the time we caught them that this is not working, it's all 4-5 years gone. So my role in National Highway EV is to create an highway which is continuously onboarding new technologies. It might be wireless, pantograph, it might be charging station, or the Germany e-highway model or US e-highway model of Tesla. But this continuation should give us an insight that whether we should wait for hydrogen, whether we should go for electric, what long and how strong our supply chain management is there. Are we in position to give clarity from the government side at that level that you are not to be confused right now? I see a lot of companies who are very large in size. They are capable to buy electric trucks, electric fleets. They are not buying or they are not taking, they are waiting on the fence just because they have something back in their mind that hydrogen is going to come. So if I take a decision now, I'll be in soup. So And when I conduct a trial between hydrogen and electric, it is difficult to take a hydrogen truck on the ground for a technical trial. So something which is not ready is hurting, which you have prepared from last 10 years. So these type of mistakes, I think government and stakeholders should come together to correct rectify and create a conducive environment where people talk about quality, they talk about certification, competence, and what people need to fit in the pocket.
Right, I get your point because a lot of industry players are talking about the same as far as the government's role is concerned. But I also want to come to you, Pankaj, to understand how digital marketing strategies can align with regulatory requirements in order to promote EVs and the kind of policies that should be in place to support this.
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I think Abhijit raised something very interesting in terms of copy-paste of international measures and strategies. The biggest problem on a copy-paste, which I see as far as regulation is concerned, is blocking a cut on a road. So I'll give an example. Coming to Noida, all of us, we did a research. Some 76% people, that's 38 out of 50 people, cars were checked, they were on the wrong side. So India is largely a left-hand drive.
Yes.
And you're driving on the left-hand side and you're going straight and there's a crossroad. Now, smartly, the system has blocked the crossroad. So you take a left, go 800 meters and then come back and take a right turn. But on the same turn, you see 10 meters away, you've got a right cut. So you take that wrong side. 38 out of 50 people do that, right? Which is terrible. And every day you see people dying on the road. So as far as regulation is concerned, I fully agree with you. It's not about copy-paste. It's about understanding the market needs, understanding what is implementable, and then go ahead and implement. So this was not related to EVs, but was very relevant to EVs, very relevant to traffic. Now, as far as digital marketing is concerned, I think we all need to understand how important. Right, so for everything you'll have a good and a bad. So if you are into homeopathy or if you are into naturopathy, there'll be 10 people telling you go for it and they'll tell 10 people tell you against it. But the one thing that people need to understand and that needs to be communicated in a layman's language is imagine, har ghar, if every house today, there was no electric connection and they ran on a generator, a diesel generator or a petrol generator, what would happen? You'd choke in that society, right? So that's exactly what's happening on the roads today. Every car is running on bloody diesel or generators. You are killing yourself. The transition to EV has to happen. There is no way about it, right? And people need to understand digital marketing plays a huge role in telling you and I how important it is to buy that electric vehicle. But I get a diesel vehicle or a petrol vehicle for 6 lakhs and the same EV comes for 60 lakhs, right? So that is the challenge. So we are a selfish society. We need to save our own pockets before we look at the environment, right? Okay. That's the challenge. So digital marketing can play a role in one, trying to ensure that people understand the need for it, but then governance somewhere needs to come to tell people that, it's not about that. There's a cost that needs to be taken care of.
So Uday, I'd like you to address that point. Also, tell us where India stands in terms of trials and testing and what the hiccups are and how important a role would government collaboration play in terms of coming out with more effective policies and working in tandem with private players?
Well, first of all, really glad to be here at Republic and, to see that mainstream media understands the importance of the new world of green energy, sustainability, mobility revolution is all about making India a greener and cleaner country. Great to be with among friends. Abhijit, I know for a long time, so it's feeling like ghar wapsi wali baat hai. I'm working on my Hindi over the years now, but what I would say is that, I think the need of the hour, the need of this country is to make it green and cleaner. But we just cannot just expect everything from the government. Coming back to you, it has to be a public-private partnership. I totally agree that, we need to make sure 31 of the most polluted cities in the world is in our country. If we have to do something, we have to do this together. The government is working on, it was FAME 1, FAME 2, we've got FAME 3 come up just now. Abhijit was just talking about it with us that, how e-trucks has become very important. E-ambulances for the first time have been brought into the system. But I just don't think we can expect this country to be dependent on everything of the government. It has to be where all of us, and you were talking about a selfish society. I think where we all need to understand, if we care about the future generations of our country, and if we care about, I'm very big on Nari Shakti, if we want to change that, we want to bring a change, we all have to put our hand in the pocket. And if we don't, then I think we're going to be living in a very, very difficult world ahead. Modi ji is talking about building the third largest economy and building the third largest stock market in the world. But having the right environment is just as important.
Yeah.
I think what is most important is in terms of trials and testing. Abhijit ji said that obviously continuous testing. I am testing in the deserts of Jaisalmer. I'm testing in the mountains in Kashmir. I just came from Norway and in the Nordic countries. I'm going tomorrow morning test in the deserts of Abu Dhabi. We have to test. We have to be able to make sure that the TCO, what you're talking about, is the total cost ownership model works. In India, if we really talk about hame greener, cleaner India chahiye, if it doesn't work on the total cost ownership, none of you will change. You want कि मेरे को क्या saving हुई. So I think policies and procedures, testing of those vehicles, finding solutions, whether it's financing, whether it's battery as a service, whether it's making policies that work together. For me, only one thing. They say in a war, it's boots on the ground. For me, it's vehicles on the ground. Having the infrastructure for charging. And I'll tell you what, a lot of work is going on in this country. And I would tell you, बहुत सारे लोग कहेंगे कि बहुत धीरे चल रहा है. मैं कह रहा हूँ, जितना काम हो रहा है, बहुत speed से चल रहा है. And I think, give the next 5 years, I think you're going to see, not just EV.
Right.
It's going to be, if you talk to Toyota, they talk about hybrid. It's going to be hydrogen. And it's going to be any technology that gives us off this foreign oil dependence. And with all of this uncertainty in today's world, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, I think we've got to owe it, not just for a cleaner India, to get off this exposure to foreign oil. I think government policies are being worked at, whether it's at the national level or at the state level, because every CM also understands that if we don't move towards green energy and sustainability, they're going to be voted out. I'll tell you, every state government, whether it is BJP or anti-BJP, they're all working on this. And I think that is something which has never happened in this country. So look, for me, I'm really, really proud to be in this nation where a lot of change is happening. Time लगता है, हर कुछ में थोड़ा सा effort लगाना पड़ता है. As I said to you before, Rome wasn't built in one day. In India, we want to build a Rome every day. So let's keep working on it, and I think we'll get to the solutions.
So that's a very positive approach. And Abhimanyu, I want to come to you on this point because some countries have been able to crack the formula. They're running a successful model. The important thing is not just to take lessons, but also to understand how we can best adapt it in our scenario to create a conducive environment. Where do we stand and how do we bridge the gap?
Sure. Thanks, Suesha. Again, before I begin, I would like to thank Republic for having me here. To answer your question, like you said, yes, I think there are different countries around the world at different stages. To just simplify it, we can maybe call them mature and emerging markets, which is also a fairly commonly used terminology. So there are mature markets who have, like Norway. Norway is a very commonly dropped name, I think, because they're doing so well. China, when you come to Asia, China is again a mature market by all intents and purposes. But if you were to talk about India and what learnings we can take, like Abhijit ji said, we can just pick up and copy paste from the West, or even a market like China, because there is probably maybe some realities are very similar, but they are just at a stage right now where if we just pick up something that they are doing in year 20 of their EV growth and we being in our year 8 or 9, it will probably not be immediately identically replicable for us. So maybe there are learnings that we can take from these mature markets, but also see the other emerging markets, especially in Global South, especially in South Asia. For example, markets like Thailand, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, while they are much smaller nations and much smaller economies than India, they do have some aggressive targets that they, are by in some ways they are on the road to achieve. For example, one important target I would say is just electrification of all state-owned vehicles. Now, again, just before the panel, we were talking, and I mentioned to Abhijit ji how that's a number that, and he in fact corrected me that that's a number that India has missed a couple of times. So policy that ensures that we meet that target, all state-owned vehicles, are converted to EVs, and we have a realistic but also an aspirational target for that.
Right.
Now, if we talk about some other countries in the APAC, New Zealand is an example which not only incentivizes buying an EV, but kind of, I don't want to use the word punished, but maybe makes it more difficult or more expensive for people to have ICE, which is internal combustion engine, your traditional petrol diesel vehicles. So it makes it more expensive for someone to buy a petrol or diesel vehicle. They have something that is the opposite of a rebate called a fee bait. And there, if you want to buy a petrol vehicle for whatever reason, maybe it has higher torque or more power or whatever, then you pay an additional fee. While a EV is available to you, and Uday was talking about total cost of ownership, which is calculated over maybe 5 years or 10 years. So if you buy something that's immediately more expensive, which is right now a big deterrent to people who are looking to buy EVs. They say महंगा है, so क्या कर रहे हैं 5 साल बाद अगर recover हो भी जाएगा तो, but for now we will be paying more from our pocket right now. That immediately right off the bat is not an issue for some, and I don't know if we are there yet, but that's a model that we can develop policy. We can work with businesses, and that's where ease of doing business comes in. So we can not just
we resolved, I think, 5 years back, that every person who is being expected right now to buy EV does not need to buy EV. There are Blue Smarts, there are Neo Go who are buying EV and giving you on the subscription. You use it. Even for intercity, you can use it.
I want to come to you on a very important point as Program Director for National Highways for Electric Vehicles. To understand from you, Abhijit, how you see government policies affecting the deployment of charging infrastructure along national highways, because that is a key concern in order to go the EV way.
See, you may find me sounding little impatient, but I am not finding it that we are doing enough. We are either doing too little to celebrate, or we are too late to wait. It's 10-year journey. If you will include FAME 1 and FAME 2, we have lost many opportunities. We lost the opportunity that our leadership given. Our Minister of Road Transport clearly given an opportunity that you can make both electric vehicle and petrol vehicle prices equal by putting the battery on swapping. We made a panel for deciding within industry on the size of the battery, on the connector of the battery, on the material and how do they communicate. But we could not reach to consensus and we missed that bus. Now before that there was a very strong narrative which was very badly prepared, or maybe I will say also battled by the media, that the basic and the large game player of oil industry, which has this automobile industry coming out from oil and then from automobile coming out to the electric mobility. So they did not wanted it to grow. That is why it was kept in such a complicated mode that what you all spoke is to us, it is like a 5-10 years old problem. You don't need to buy and own every vehicle. You can use a vehicle within the city, you can use on the highway, you can use on the cab, you can keep couple of vehicles. So why we did not went on the highways and why we did not went to create those ecosystems which are giving you a strength is that has delayed the transition already. Now, right now, if you see truck, which is contributing 30% of the emission, was out of the FAME subsidy from last 10 years. Recently, Prime Minister's scientific advisor given a recommendation to the PM e-drive and it came. Buses, which are most important part of the ecosystem of public transport, they were not benefited for a long period of time, and as a whole, as a sector, we failed to impress those private bus operators to come and switch into electric, and majority of buses are owned by the private operators. We were focusing on the city buses. So these type of conventional and unconventional, I think, miss-outs are now hitting badly. And if you will say highways, you have asked a very good question about highway. I would say if not now, if we do not decide the meaning of e-highway in India at this stage of time, we will make further losses in the adoption. Anybody gets up, puts a charger on a dhaba and says this road has become an e-highway. E-highway is what you need to see from Germany, what you need to see from America, and then you also have a beta version which we have prototyped between Delhi, Jaipur and Delhi, Agra. It is giving confidence to people that if you shut down with your car on an highway, within 30 minutes without calling, we reach to you. If you are using that particular highway, then you are committing a 30% commitment to the charger. and you are not buying the vehicle, you are just using the vehicle. So these are the definitions of e-highway, which we need to debate on it, but we need to finalize a standard. Otherwise, anybody will say it's an e-highway, and who will get hurt? A logistic company who is currently using diesel, if they switch to electric and they consider, okay, this lane was an e-highway because of some media marketing stuff has happened, that company will come back and say, this is not the development which I thought of.
What you're saying, Abhijit, is music to my ears, because perception is reality, right? And as far as masses are concerned, and as far as the big population that we are concerned, no one is aware of the total cost of ownership.
True.
The point that you guys raised, right? Over 5-10 years. And if people manage to understand that the total cost of ownership is pretty much the same, you will see a huge move. What you spoke about the highways is again news, right? If your vehicles break down, there's no charge. Someone comes to your rescue. But I think the government needs to play a huge role in trying to communicate that to the masses, and so does the media, right?
Right, and which is why I further wanted you to comment on the compliance challenges that we are facing in the given network, in the given framework when it comes to the regulatory landscape.
Regulation, so I think Abhijit is the right guy to comment on that, but broadly speaking, from a general point of view, regulations mean nothing till it's not implemented. Right? So the example I gave you about cuts is something which is really trivial, but a lot of things need to be implementable, right? You can't have a cop standing on every station. You can't be communicating to individuals how good EVs are. But the fact is, the moment you hammer the message that EVs are imperative, whether it's hydrogen, but you need to get rid of fuel passing by your house, I think half the job is done. The other job is about getting the pricing right. But if you communicate the complete total cost of ownership, I think that's done. So there is no problem. I think everything is there. The only gap that lies in to a great extent, being the world's biggest democracy, is in a lot of consensus to make things move, to get the machinery moving. So we worked with the government, we worked with the BJP. You rightly said about tenders getting in, tenders getting out. I think there's enough money in this country. There is enough authority in this country. The problem only lies in all of us saying yes to something and moving in the right direction. Consensus, that's all there is to it.
Which is so simple.
Which is so simple.
Which is not as simple all the time.
So again, on the selfish society, I think he said it rightly. We need to put the hands in the pocket, step out and invest. But why will I do it? Why don't you do it?
I'll do it.
That's exactly what the word. No, that's what everyone thinks. So I will do it with you, bro.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. No one wants to invest the money, right?
See, I think, मैं फिर बोल रहा हूँ, अभिजीत जी, आप impatient है, मुझे अच्छा लगता है, लेकिन 10 साल ही हुए हैं और ऑटो इंडस्ट्री बहुत टाइम से है, तो मेरे ना बहुत सारे बाल सफ़ेद हो गए, मैंने ज़िंदगी में बहुत कुछ देखा है. I think you have to be a bit patient. This is a country which is the most, when I came back from abroad, my mum once said, if you want to be in India, stop complaining and try to find ways to make it work, right? And so all I'm going to say, for a guy who spent 30 years in US and Europe and came back to this country, I still think a lot is happening. I think there is a newer, younger India. I do see, Abhijit ji, give it the next 5 years. I'll tell you what. I give you an example, right, on the total cost ownership. I've come up with a 3-wheeler passenger, right? An average EV does 120 kilometers a day, which is about maximum 3,000. I've got a 15-minute fast charging, which we're putting up the chargers in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Ahmedabad, and we'll put it across the country, can make 400 kilometers a day. On an average, that we have drivers driving between 6,000 to 7,000. When a driver runs 6,000 to 7,000 against a 3,000, the TCO model and the income works. You get a buy-in. That's what needs to happen on the trucks. That's what needs to happen on the buses and on the 4-wheeler passenger. True. The way it works is scale. We all talk about China. China has got scale. We have to if we want to make India great again, I'll take it from the Trump, we are on a path of great again, possibly. But what I'm saying is that if we do this, we've got to build scale. And scale can come with alliances. Hyundai is doing an IPO in this country of 25,000 crores. What does that tell me? India has a market. India has a development scenario. And I appreciate that time is 10 years नहीं हुआ. लेकिन I think next 5 सालों में, अभी जी आप तो बहुत young हैं, हम तो बुढ़े हो गए, लेकिन आपको नजर आएगा. This is going to happen because technology is going to play.
Right. And Abhimanyu, you'd want to
Make India great again.
comment on it. India is great, but we're talking about the EV space right now, and it's really about getting all the stakeholders together to work in tandem with the government, and it's just about synchronizing.
You spoke about regulatory, so if you don't mind,
Yes, please.
if I may bring it back to that. So I do have some thoughts there. I believe that regulatory around EV goes closely hand in hand with regulatory around larger urban mobility. I think EV is a very important, electrification, energy transition is a very important part of it, but regulatory and policy around making more sustainable urban mobility, I think, is the answer. And making EV compliant and e-highways is very much part of smart planning. The smart city project is very closely aligned with e-highways. So we just have to build better cities that are better planned. For example, when you talk about EVs, IPT in urban mobility, which is intermediate public transport, that's a term we commonly use, but things like once you're getting off a metro, how are you getting to your house? That's IPT. Once you're getting off that bus station, etc., or if you take an auto, is the auto easily available? So just intermediate public transport, how can we electrify and make that more sustainable, make that more accessible? So I think when we talk about three-wheelers and everyone's saying three-wheelers, 50% of three-wheelers are already EVs in India, but how many of those are e-rickshaws? Because I think e-rickshaws form a big part of the puzzle, and not many people are talking about those. So there could be regulatory around those. Now, we all know that e-rickshaws don't have the strongest regulatory around it. There's a lot of just gray areas there. Similar is the case for the less than 25 km per hour speed wale e-two-wheelers. So again, those, because the delivery economy is right now again a big part of this puzzle, and delivery economy is using those Yulu bikes and those other e-mopeds,
right.
which you are also manufacturing, right?
There's a big change coming.
You're doing the moped, right?
No. I'm doing. We don't do anything that is low speed.
Okay.
And we don't do anything that is we don't do lead acid. Everything has lithium or others.
Okay.
So you're absolutely. But the point, Abhimanyu, you're saying is absolutely right. And sorry to interrupt you. I
problem,
think
yeah.
all of that change needs to happen. And I think in the delivery, you'll see some vehicles come out in the near future with everybody, where all of this is going out. The regulation is coming. The enforcement is coming. But again, थोड़ा सा time लगता है.
Good to hear.
Right.
Good to hear.
Right,
And
so-
if I may just bring that home, just a couple of more minutes at the most. One last puzzle is just, when we talk about sustainability, I think again a big part of it is the inclusion through livelihoods, because as I said, briefly touched upon, there's this large workforce that is currently working on the petrol and diesel vehicles, the
Right,
mechanics,
right.
the engineers, the after-sales service, which may or may not be trained on how to service electronic vehicles, or just the future state. Even if you're going to get your old petrol car retrofitted with an EV kit, which is like something that government is incentivizing. Do you have?
Skilling is important.
Yeah. Do you have a workforce that will? Can you then take it to the service center again 2 months later, and the same person will be able to service it? Ideally, the same person should be able to. They should have both the skills.
Yeah. Right.
But currently, that is missing. So that's again policy regulatory that may not be directly something that comes to mind when you think about moving to EVs. But I think those are important, making it inclusive in terms of gender, involving just people with disability, more women,
Yes,
more trans people. I think
absolutely.
all that is important.
Very important
Yeah.
concern. But I still feel that we've had this discussion, and we are ending on a very positive note.
I just want to add one
Hopeful.
last thing.
Yes, please.
I, as a country, India, from 2014 to 2024, has came from 10 number of GDP to 5 number of GDP.
Right.
I have pushed Russia, Italy, Brazil, France and UK.
Rank.
Right now, I am knocking Germany. After Germany, I have US, Japan and China. My pace of, as an economy growing, is highly dependent on my ambition on climate and decarbonization. The second ambition which I have, to reduce my oil import bill as a country. Because what is happening into geopolitical situation, you need to be an energy independent country as soon as possible. How much time, money it takes, it's your call. But if I look at how I have grown as a economy, then first 1 trillion I have taken 65 years. Second trillion I have taken 8 years. Third trillion 5 years. Fourth 3 years. Fifth trillion, we may take less than 2 years, and we are developing a capability under Viksit Bharat to add 1 trillion economy every year. So that we can reach to $35 trillion economy. And both of these targets are dependent on the decarbonization of our fleets, decarbonization of our surface transport, reduction of 14% GDP that we're spending on the logistic into 9%. So my impatience is compared to Digital India, which Prime Minister opened into 2016. Within 10 years, my ranking of data consumption from 123 become number 1 globally. But in electric mobility, I'm not seeing my ranking anywhere in the globe comparative to what we could do in the DPI, UPI and NPI. This is the wish, this is the time for us. यही समय है और सही समय है.
So fasten the pace, but we are hopeful that we are getting there. I as much would want this discussion to continue, but we are slightly short on time. I want to thank you all for sharing your inputs, and like I said, I always like a panel with very diverse opinions. So hoping that all these concerns are addressed. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank